called it a gross overreach, and I said, I don't think it's an overreach if we really put our own property. And I said, if we've ever tried to rule on their property.
No.
Who are you?
Brian, I didn't have an opinion.
I need a haircut too.
I mean, I knew you heard the last time I was here.
Yes, I could trim it up for you.
No.
They used to do a good job with Joe. I feathered it and everything back in the day. Well, whenever something gets bad, it's on.
Yeah, we gotta get
Oh, we-
Brett, or you still wanna have
Yeah,
that
Brett and
one?
Stephanie, yeah. Let's see.
On the books, it states that people cannot essentially cut down trees on our property. Between our property and theirs.
Probably not.
There's a lot of
Literally,
A lot of them come in and ask our permission. But then there's people like we dealt with last week that put off lots and lots of trees.
yeah, I don't know of anything specifically that says that they can't, or, you know, it just says no. Some people take that
We'll find out.
logical.
Yeah.
If they have a tree that's dead or dying or looks like it's gonna fall, something like that.
I
they
think
might
that
do.
they're
That wasn't
allowed,
the case.
yeah, it's allowed
At all.
nuisance.
Do you know that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I saw it before and after. They just cleared out of timber. They didn't want it there.
Yeah, there's quite a few people that have done that.
Well, not people that have done this problematic.
I got 3 here now. Yeah, but we can step into
Brett's out there too.
minutes. We've got a minute taken.
All right.
Stand for the pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll do roll call. We got Tim.
Here.
Brett.
Here.
Justin.
Here.
And Brett.
Here.
I'd like to move to adopt the agenda with the addition of the resolution that Todd passed out being placed on it somewhere. Am I missing it?
No, we mean the one with
This
resolution.
is resolution.
Oh,
The
this one.
moratorium.
No, the moratorium isn't on the list, so you want to add that?
Yes.
We asked him to, you asked him to make it and bring it, but we're not discussing it tonight.
Oh, we can.
We can discuss a little bit, but then we need to make plans on that discussion, a public meeting probably. Is this what you're talking about though?
No, that's already on there. That's 71221, right?
Right.
Revenue neutral rate, so,
Right, the revenue neutral rate is on there. He's talking about the drop.
yeah, so if you guys want to add the other one, to the agenda, that's got to be a motion or whatever.
That's what my motion is for, is to add this one.
Where at?
New city business, I would imagine.
Well, yeah, it's just right.
It's new.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt this agenda with the addition of new city business of the memorandum
So it's a moratorium.
moratorium. Keep doing that. Write that down. All, let's see, all in favor? Unanimous. there's one thing that you needed to change in there. We were waiting for I should have probably sent you an email that you had put Department of Aging, but it was the other department that we were waiting for.
Oh, in the minutes?
Mhm. We were waiting for,
I thought it just said state of Kansas. but
Did you, do anything about the minutes regarding that? I think it's time to right now if we're gonna pass it.
I'll move to pass the minutes after the corrections to it, that it was, it was left open that we didn't say that we were gonna gather information and talk about, local realtors in it, so if you could put that in the minutes.
Okay. Fairwind Department. That we were gonna discuss local realtors.
Yes,
Okay.
which I believe was part 2 at like
Mm-hmm.
20 minutes left in the meeting,
Okay.
if you need to reference it.
And you're saying, Dolly, okay, on the status of the loan with the Department of Aging. So I need to take that out.
you need to.
You could
just
leave that
switch it
in
to the
there.
department.
Or,
Well, she got a different.
okay, a different
A
one.
different department.
Different wording.
Yeah, it would be the housing department.
Department
One
of Housing.
easy, yeah.
Okay.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Yeah. Appropriation ordinance 1488.
1488.
Second.
Okay. Tim,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Justin,
Yes.
Brett.
Yes.
Okay. Public concerns or comments? Okay. Department reports, Mike, give me any reports?
He did that.
Stephanie?
I don't have much other than the couple things that I printed off for you guys, that I put in your boxes. The one paper that I believe was on top, did everybody get that? That, I should have written something on it, but that is what Deb gave me after the last meeting for her sales. So if you're wondering what that is. And that's all I have. Yeah. Everything else is on the agenda.
Okay. Is there any coming tonight, did you say?
I don't think so.
Was anybody at the grand opening for the Busy-Bill?
Yes, it was great.
Yeah.
I don't think the turnout was what we had expected, but we had to cancel it from Saturday and move it to Sunday, which I think hurt us a lot, but there was still a lot of people that showed up. And
Well, and there were people that dropped in and out too all day.
Yeah,
all
there's,
day long.
yeah, there's a lot of different people there. At the
Yeah. at different
beginning of the day
times.
and the end.
They would
Yeah.
come in the evening.
I know we had a couple food trucks drop out, but the one that was there, I'm sure was very
was
happy
sold
because
out.
he
He was
ran, he
killing it.
sold out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was way out of town, so.
Okay. All right. Sally, did you have anything that you need to report on?
No, not really. Stephanie's gonna send some letters out about some mowing jobs that need to be done to a few places around town. The other one we'll talk here later about that I got the info on for you guys. That's about it.
Okay. Any purchase requests or work orders?
No.
Okay,
It's just gonna sit
Yeah.
here.
all right. New city business, moratoria.
So I will tell you guys really quick while you're talking about this. Some people did ask if this was on the agenda, and I said if not tonight, probably like maybe not that matters, but just FYI.
So I meant to go back and watch the YouTube. Why? Why are we doing this?
I think, I mean, from how it just sounded from you, it seems as though this comes out of left field for you, but I don't think that it does, because we've talked about it a dozen times about going through this process of doing this. So it's not like anything new. What the Boozers, the letter that they drafted and sent out to all the lake people to ruffle feathers, I mean, we didn't even talk about some of this stuff. I mean, it's pretty, I mean, I don't know. So I don't know where they got any of their information when the moratorium wasn't even drafted up or even talked about. It seems like they just,
So was it something that was said during those meetings or not? Because I mean, here's a,
something that, what do you mean, something that was said?
Well,
well, there's
I was
something that
directed-
initiated
yeah, I
Todd
was
to-
directed to prepare it.
yeah.
Right.
Okay. So
At the meeting,
Yes.
which it hasn't been discussed or read through or anything, by me anyway. So what they emailed out, I guess, to the entire lake people was to ruffle feathers and get people on their side. It seems as though maybe 4 people were concerned enough to message back, but I have talked to at least 4 people that live out there that are for it. So, I mean,
I've talked
now
to,
the discussion begins.
yeah, and so that's why I would like us to look at this, get public input and cover it at the lake meeting. And also, if we're going to go ahead and do this, then we probably should have a public meeting of the people that it will be affecting, which will be
that's
the
what this
people
is.
at the lake.
That's this meeting right here.
But it wasn't on the agenda.
Correct.
No,
Correct.
and but if we have it on the next meeting, we're gonna need a bigger room, because I've had at least 6 people approach me
I
the
had
very next day after they got through watching the film.
I had several people contact me in regards to this. I have sent out an email to correct a lot of the falsehoods on that other letter that was emailed around. I had lots of people send me messages thanking me for correcting everything, because the bullet points that had people upset were things that were never discussed, never considered in this council. I mean, one of the items was to not let people fix up their dock. We have never shied away from letting somebody fix the dock up. Why would we? We've never let somebody make their little plank turn into a dock. I mean, when you have a dock, you can make it a 20 by 24. We haven't ever shied away from that. We've always let people fix it up.
Except for when they're 2 dock.
Exactly. That's the only time, and that's been the standing rule for a very long time. We
It's a
haven't allowed
standing
any.
rule, but is it an ordinance? Brad was asking about that earlier. Did you guys ever pass an ordinance or
But
anything?
Brad was asking about making them eliminate one of their docks.
Yeah,
Is that
that's,
what you were talking about?
the ordinance doesn't necessarily say that, but since it's a pre-existing use, it's always been interpreted to allow for 2 docks for one structure only upon certain conditions.
And that's written down.
I have to look at it again to see how specific it is.
Cause I can't find it anywhere.
Yeah, it's based mostly upon,
He said, she said.
no, the concept of zoning, meaning, or pre-existing use. That if you have a use that pre-exists a change in an ordinance, any ordinance, it's a grandfather clause. So if you build something, you're allowed to at one point, and then the rules change, you can still maintain it. And I would argue that it's different. This is always different from those cases, because moratorium in a zoning situation is difficult because there's a separate issue, because you're saying in zoning, you're regulating people's uses of their own property. Meaning I've got a piece of property, I'm gonna build a building on it, and you just say, we're not issuing new building permits. Just not doing it. That's not acceptable, because people have the right to use the property in some, general way. This is different because it's your property. So I would argue overall, in as much as these things have some logic to them and you guys are being good about allowing people, not having to tear out perfectly good docks and stuff like that because they've been there for 20 years, that's not a bad thing necessarily. But it only lives as long as you guys want it to. Because it's ultimately still back down to the fact that it's city property. So, I mean, if that change is necessary, this is obviously not going to do the job here. This moratorium is not going to change that. But that's a separate thing. But just so you understand.
And Tim, the people that talked to me the next day didn't talk about any of this because this hadn't come out yet, I don't think. The people that came in and talked to me were people that had property that they might sell someday, and they said that if somebody, they worried that they wouldn't be able to sell it as readily if they didn't have the availability of putting a dock on it, on the lake. And I told them that we were going to discuss it at a meeting, and I just kind of just left it at that.
That's not our problem.
But so that's why we're going to just.
The fact is,
But there were people that went both ways on that.
the thing is, Justin, we've been talking about this for quite some time.
You and Brad have talked about it here at the meetings,
Yes.
but it's
And
your
open
desire.
meetings.
I've heard it.
Recorded.
It,
With other
Sure.
input from other council members, past and present.
With
We've
it.
just never done anything.
To my knowledge, we haven't approved any new dock structure in quite some time.
I can't speak for the last 3 meetings, obviously. But
Oh, I mean,
I can think of
lot
one.
longer.
Okay.
Okay.
And it was 4th tier, which brought up this conversation the last time. Or 3rd tier. It's right by you. What are they? 3rd tier.
I
And it's
agree
with
with
a
limiting it
10 by
at some
10
point.
shed
I mean, at some
that had a
point it
toilet.
gets ridiculous that you're so far away from the lake. I can get behind something like that. But if you're 1st and 2nd tier, and I do think it devalues it. I know that's not anything that, I as a council member could be concerned with, but just as someone that's sympathetic to the situation they're in. I don't know. I'm not.
Well,
Sounds like
I may
I'm
be
in the
wrong,
minority.
but in my understanding, if anyone is 1st tier, they've already had the opportunity to acquire a dock.
And there's not
So
many
the-
1st tier lots
The
anyway.
people that are left are people who are wanting to build and hoping that they can increase their value at the same time with a dock. Either way, the property is going to be very valuable, as you know what the property values have done out. Sure. My main concern, though, is preservation of the lake's shoreline. There are so many docks out there. There's hardly any area left. I mean, you have to scour the lake shoreline just to find a spot to poke a dock in. Now, there was one cliff that was untouched until some people bought the property with the sole purpose of turning a profit off of it. Not because they wanted to live there and have a nice little home with their dock. They wanted to turn a profit off of it. That's my understanding. I may be wrong. I believe that's why they had that property. They went in, they mowed down all of our trees off of this cliffside, which is going to cause the erosion to erode much more rapidly. When all those roots dry out and die and rot, things are going to start sliding into the lake. Well,
So is
I
it
don't
easement
think
or
it's-
city property or what?
yeah, they cut the trees on our property.
Okay.
A lot of them, not just 1 or 2.
Yeah.
It was a very heavily wooded area, and now you can openly see the water from their land. Again, I wanted that cliff to remain protected with nothing on it. That won't happen again.
That makes sense. Yeah.
That's a done deal now. I don't think that we need to continue ruining more space. There's not much left out there.
Yeah, but I don't know. There are some places where you can fit a dock in. I mean, granted, sometimes it's somebody that's clear over from the lake, and we've dealt with those situations before where, somebody is halfway across the lake from their dock, and yeah, it
Which is what
sucks,
we
but
did last.
yeah, but I don't know. I mean, there's still some spaces where there is space, but that's you know, if we are more deliberate about, you know, this cliff is off limits and, you know, getting a map and coloring it up, so to speak, to, you know, where the North Shore is already off limits. And, you know, that's,
I would be very inclined to entertain a sunset on this resolution. Leave the construction alone for a period of time, and then we can go from there.
just a 6 months or a predetermined
I was thinking 10
timeout
years.
or, oh, I see.
Well, it's always subject to a sunset of the next council.
Well,
Next
yeah,
month.
next council could vote in
Yeah,
Sure.
docks are back, but yeah.
but an automatic is not improper either.
So we're going to have this on the next meeting's agenda. We can collect information and public opinion from whomever and bring that to the next council meeting. And if we get enough response and people that want to come to the meeting, then I'll probably be told that, and we'll make arrangements for a meeting in a larger building.
I would like to read this.
So you're gonna send an email out then to the lake residents about that? Or,
I'm pretty sure they're all going to be
because
watching
we should
this
send one
bill.
out to the citizens of Eskridge too, because it's their shoreline, so they should have input as well.
We
What's
have,
gonna go
yeah, we
on
have several,
Sorry,
Yeah.
send what?
some way
The
to,
agenda? Or
Well, if you're gonna send a notice, if
About
somebody's
this.
sending a notice to lake residents, you have to send it to city residents as
oh,
well.
sure.
Okay, so that's
I'm
separate in the
just-
agenda.
I wanna make it clear, the city residents have a voice in this as well, not just the lake residents, because it is the city residents shoreline, they pay taxes, all of that, so, I just
I
wanna
would
make,
argue the city residents have much more at stake because they're
correct,
lake.
actually, and they've lost a lot already.
For the record, I would like to read the 5 bullet points that were on this email that was sent around, just to clarify and make sure people understand. These are not things that we wish to impose. According to this, it says an owner of an undersized dock wishing to have a standard dock. These are things that are the email says would not be allowed. I'll repeat it. Owner of an undersized dock wishing to have a standard sized dock. That is not something that we wish to do. Owner with 1 or 2 walkways wanting to convert one to a boat dock. That is not something that we have ever discussed either, to my knowledge, or wish to do. Owner with a walkway and boat lift alongside wanting to combine them. We have been approving that, and I don't think there's been anybody pushing back unless the combination of the two is oversized, which we just asked to make it within the limits, and then we approve it. Owner with a damaged dock and unrepairable that needs to be replaced. We certainly encourage that, let alone. Anyway. Owner with a fixed dock wishing to convert to a floating dock. That is, I don't believe that's been discussed either, but I just want to make the point that those 5 bullets are entirely invalid.
And mysteriously popped up out of nowhere. for some
I
reason.
suppose the only one that was a little bit off would be the fact that if there's somebody who has a non-conforming
Yes.
dock that's damaged or a hazard or a nuisance, and we would order its removal, it would not necessarily be granted a new dock permit just because.
I think the point was that
Yeah,
none of this was discussed,
yeah.
and yet they chose to make it up out of thin air and say we discussed it or whatever they did for some reason, throw it on here and to try to make us look bad.
When we.
That's
told
what
them
they
wanted.
did, because none of this was discussed and they know it. I was
Excuse
sitting
me,
here.
what?
May I speak? My name is Greg Stevie. My wife and I own lot 26. What is the intent? I'm just curious. What is the intent of the moratorium? I know what it's not. Whatever came up with this publication, but what's it about? What are you wanting from that moratorium?
To preserve the shoreline.
Okay, but then how does that affect? Do you want no more docks? You
Mhm.
want
Yes.
so just no more docks. But
Well, no more new docks.
no more new.
No more due dock, yes.
Okay, and if someone has two docks, do they get to keep both of them, or are you gonna take those away?
Or three?
Right now, they're grandfathered in and you
Right.
pay your oversized fee.
Okay.
Nothing changes that.
Nothing changes for
So
any of
there's
that.
nothing, okay, that's what I think everyone needs to be clarity of what the moratorium would say, as opposed to someone out here in space.
Yeah, we have,
Because,
Well,
I mean,
that's-
you know, there's like, what, maybe 2 lakeside lots left at the lake. I mean, it's completely built up all the way around. There's no more spots
Sure, I mean,
left, so you're
I
looking
get it.
into second or third
But I
tier.
think it needs to be very clear what they're-
well,
Okay.
and for the people who are here, I think it's probably a good idea just to say, I'm not gonna read it verbatim, but essentially this moratorium says, we're just suspending new docks, permitting and construction. Second point is, if you submitted a permit and paid for a permit fee prior to the passage,
Alright.
you can still be approved by the city and constructed. But if it lapses, they
Yeah,
lose
that's not
it.
the
So
road.
that
This is the road.
takes care of people who have submitted requests and in fairness, didn't know that this was,
So, and we don't have any submitted
yeah,
currently.
well, I
We
mean,
probably will after this.
yeah.
One, that'll be at the next meeting.
And that may be, but that's what that says right now. And the resolution doesn't forbid improvement of any dock, repair, replacement, maintenance, or other activities on city property. So we're not stopping anybody, and we're not getting.
Well, and from my perspective, that's what I just, what is it meaning?
Yeah.
I think people have dreamed up the worst case scenario what it could mean.
Misinformation.
And because we don't know, they didn't know.
Understand.
So I think it's may add a huge amount of clarity that this debate can be managed. At least we know whoever cares to fight about it, we know exactly the bullet points by bullet point which you folks intend to push.
The author of this email knew entirely our intent.
They were here.
Well, I got the email fine and dandy, but neither here nor there. I just wanted to know what the moratorium truly does say.
And he asked.
Fair enough.
And I asked him to come here and ask you guys these questions.
But if there's ever any problem, these are all recorded. So everything that's said word for word is going to be
But
Right there
I
to
have
go
no
to YouTube
beef
to
or
watch.
qualm. I just want to understand.
I'm curious, Mr. Stevie, did you get my response to the?
I did not.
I did.
I didn't.
You didn't either.
I did not. I got the first email, but I did not get a response. And quite frankly, my wife and I own 2 docks. It's been our family for 28 years. So I'm interested if they're not gonna take away a dock or some,
not currently.
well, yeah. No, I hope not. Is that in the future?
I cannot speak for future council, but we have not talked about that here yet.
Fair enough.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
We have 2 docks.
Oh.
And we've had them for 28 years.
Again, we haven't discussed it. I mean,
Right.
it's not like something we've whispered about outside either. I mean, it's
Fair enough. I just wanted to understand.
Yeah.
So that, if I have a beef, I'd like to know the points to have a beef about.
understandable.
A ghost, because if there are certain issues, there may be different
I
things.
appreciate you coming in here to get the facts instead of listening to the grapevine.
Paying us to get the facts, but my question too is, how do we find out what some of these ordinances are? Like, we get the meeting and, minutes and whatnot. Stephanie graciously sends those out, or whoever does, but like, we have no clue, like, what some of the ordinances are. How do we find that out?
This is our public ordinance officer right here for the city of Eskridge and Lake Wabunsee. And I'm sure she would give you her phone number so that if you.
They have us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She has the ordinance book, so if you wanted something.
Wait a minute, wait.
You got fun.
Please call Stephanie if you want any information on ordinances. Sally is extremely busy and so is Stephanie.
That's
But
why I
we
said
can
Sally,
give you
because she's the public
Well, we
officer.
can give you
and stuff.
access to it
That
out
is
of
to
the
say,
city
there's
hall.
something in here that you don't know. Yeah.
But people called me also today and they were asking about, they want a draft of it, probably for tomorrow's meeting, because it was stated that it would be discussed tonight. So people are expecting me to send them a draft
I
of
think
it.
it's fine to release the draft.
I think the draft is an open record now.
Yeah,
It's gotta
I
be
mean,
released
yeah.
to Anybody requesting it, so.
Yeah.
I don't care if anybody wants to
Yeah.
read this paper. If I get it back, I'm cool with it. But
I take a copy if you don't.
Yeah, take mine because I don't need
And
that.
again, thank you for taking my question. I mean, I don't know your protocol. but-
Richard, do you have a means of scanning and then putting this on the?
I don't.
You guys need those to
So I have a
take
question.
corrections and changes.
When you need new docks, do you mean property that, or areas that's already been set aside at some point for docks?
Well, that's what Todd was saying, is if there's already been an application for,
Right.
then
So
you're
we
already
don't
in there.
have- What I'm asking, I guess, is are there like spaces that have been reserved for docks if anybody ever wants one
There
versus
are,
other people?
I know of at least one, there's probably only a few, but those are already locked in, so
I just
we're not
wondered if anybody-
retroactively taking that space away from us.
Well, I understand.
All I'm talking about is brand new construction where somebody comes up and says, I've got an idea, I want to build a dock.
Well, and I'm concerned with the shoreline issue as well, and that's why I was wondering if spaces have already been attached or set aside, then I would think Corps of Engineers or somebody would have already noticed, hey, it's safe, we won't have erosion, whatever. But if they hadn't, that makes sense, you know, if they're just, if they've just been
I'm
randomly
sorry.
putting out.
You guys don't care about that.
They've just been randomly putting out
I will get it
shoreline
here.
or
Yeah.
spaces out there without checking.
Did you get a copy of that?
You got,
I handed out.
That's
my
the,
own
that's the
copy.
wrong one.
Yeah, that's the wrong one.
sorry.
No, wait a minute, you just gave her the wrong one again.
I gave out the only one I had.
The revenue.
Yeah, this one's not it.
Ay, caramba.
It was in.
There you go, Stephanie. This is it.
No, this is the revenue.
There it is.
Well, everybody should know about the revenue.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a nutshell, it just simply says no new docks. If somebody's already got one in the works or a space reserved, we're not
But okay, now,
retroactively taking
they
that.
have technically 6 months to do that, so are you gonna let
On some
them?
of them, Sally, there's some
Right.
situations where people are essentially paying for a dock, but only because they want nothing in that space of theirs, which people want to pay for a dock to keep their land from being touched. I'm more than happy with that.
So the root cause, the root belief behind this thing is to protect shoreline and just stop any more
Clutter.
clutter on the.
Sit on erosion, clutter.
Both,
No.
both.
They just don't want more new docks on there.
Etc. as land becomes sold. The-
Correct.
don't count.
Yes.
That makes
For
sense.
example, what I was speaking of earlier, this cliff, I thought was,
No, I'm good. Thank you.
That couldn't be right. It just wouldn't make
yeah,
sense.
finally found one. Now, I am a little reasonable regardless of what you may have heard. I believe.
I think we've discussed that there's really only about 100 foot of shoreline that doesn't, usable shoreline that doesn't have docks. Knowing who owns that property above the shoreline, could this be construed as a vendetta against those property owners that own that property above the shoreline?
I don't know who it is that you're speaking of, so.
Yeah, it's the losers.
Oh, oh, no. No, you know, this has been an idea.
They got their.
Yeah, we approved it.
This has been,
They
yeah,
got approved for
yes, they did.
a dock below their property?
Yes, they did.
Well, I should have been here. I apologize to you.
And as I said,
It was
Richard,
3-2. Dolly got to break the tie.
So they're moving
They're moving that overside.
Yes.
Or
to
2-2.
the one.
Does that require?
After they bring.
Two plus one. Well,
It's
yeah.
up that way, but.
Yeah.
Real estate, right?
that's immune to that?
Well, the that is only required when they're selling their real estate.
When it's a dock
How did we let that
transfer
slip
to
through the
another.
cracks? What a
Well,
crap.
Well, because you probably don't have another situation where someone's moving a dock.
Just
So, I
move
mean-
it.
Or building a new one, this is essentially building a new one. But anyway, Richard, I want to make my point. We have spoken about this long before I've ever heard the name Boozer.
Yeah, this has been just.
I want to make that clear. We've been talking about this for a couple years at least. Granted, it's gotten more
They've
and more
been talking about it
serious.
for the last 2 years.
They,
Brett
meaning
and Tim.
everybody but Dolly's been talking about
Brett and
this
Tim,
for
well, I
several
talk
years.
about it whenever you guys talk about it. And I had asked that this be discussed at the next meeting, which is the lake meeting. And this is supposed to be the city meeting. And I knew that you were trying to help Justin understand what was going on, but now we have a full-blown conversation.
It takes a
going
while
on.
to help me understand.
Well, that's right. It was worth you getting up to
We
speed.
could be here till.
Are there any more questions on the dock? Or
No, we
regulatory?
understand it.
Okay, great.
So we got tapped
Thanks
out
for
on
coming
space,
in.
huh?
I really appreciate it when the people from the lake come into the town.
They're on here too.
They're on here too, Tim, so
Okay.
I invited them to come tonight.
Well, either way, a lot of people are on the agenda that don't show.
No, I didn't show last time.
You're fine.
I'll forgive you.
You're actually the next on the list.
All in favor?
626 Rocky Ledge Drive boat lift permit.
I'm gonna actually let him explain what he's doing.
That'd be a good idea.
It's better
May I
sense,
ask,
but
is
I
this-
will hand you the picture.
Is this the one that we tabled last meeting?
Yes, this is what you table, and he's gonna be able to answer your questions about what he's doing.
Can I make my question very direct and simple? Will the final product be within the 20 by 24 confines?
Yes. I'm done. We'll have the dock here, boat lift right beside it, very similar to the dock situation next to us, which is the Kafers Debenhams unit. It's a walkway with a boat slip with a mechanical apparatus like that, crank on, lift your boat up, and it'll have a cover over the top. Very similar.
Just
to
like what is now. And that's what he's looked at 3 different models here, and
Those
he's
are
trying to,
different.
trying to find the one that's the same size of what he's got now, right?
Yes.
That's how I understood it.
So I don't know what I can get in, right now there's supply shortages and everything. So as soon as I know it's approved, I've got to go on the market and try to find one. The people said some of them are a year out. I don't know till I say pick this one or pick that one, but
Be sure that they send you what you are ordering. And it's not slightly oversized. I don't want to walk down that road again.
okay. And to be very clear, the outside perimeter from the dock that it's going up against will be no larger than 24 by 20.
That's,
If I have to cut a foot off the other one and make it thin, I will do so. And I will still
Great.
maintain the 10-foot separation between the next.
that was my other question.
That is full intent to keep that, preserve that. So if I have to cut that down, I shall do so. And it will have a covered apparatus, metal roof, if you will.
I'm happy.
Okay, his other dock that he just got done reading looks beautiful. That he just redid on board and board.
Anyone else? Brett, I know you're stewing over something over there.
I'm just gonna ask you because I just want to know the answer. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I was under the impression that if you have an oversized dock plus another size dock, that you can't alter either one of those docks in any way, shape, or form. So correct me, please. Am I wrong?
Well, I think I don't think I'm just being very technical here, but I don't think oversize has anything to do with the 2-dock rule. The 2-dock rule is essentially that you can't alter those 2 docks.
Can't make it bigger or
You
anything.
can make.
We will add
So
more
we
for board
talked-
replacements. We will
And
add
this is probably
certain
technically the
maintenance.
question.
Right, but you couldn't alter it in any way. is
Zebra
what I'm
Muscles kind of added a new thing where we
Yeah, that's what
More,
I think
forgiving on boat lifts and to try to get those out of the water. So
Yeah, and
that's-
I always understood that to be is that if you have 2 docks and you're gonna replace things, that's fine. You can't build, a new building on it, a boathouse, a roof, something like that. And I know that the boat lift concept, because of the zebra mussels, has been loosened up. But arguably that again is a matter of interpretation on the part of the council. It's not, I think it's a rule that
really
you
more
can't,
precedent than anything, right?
yeah, you can't,
Do we call
Yeah.
it precedent?
So case by case?
Well,
You can say that?
Well, I
Everything's
mean,
a
it's-
case by case. and-
yeah, it's always discretion
It's-
ultimately.
yeah.
So I don't think that's if you're just asking if he's replacing an existing thing with a new thing that's just newer and nicer, I don't know that I can technically say one way or the other. I think it's a reasonable question.
That is our intent. We have a dock, we have a lift, we have a cover on the current lift
How long has the lift been there?
since 93 or better. 28 years.
And what I believe I'm hearing is you have one dock that has been remodeled, whatever. Is that an oversized? The other
20
one?
by 24, that's oversized.
This one?
That's not
It's
oversized.
not
Oh, it's not oversized.
No,
No.
he has
Okay.
two.
Well, that was the
regular
irrelevant
docks.
question
I mean,
anyway. I'm sorry about
No
that.
worries.
Regular docks.
But you have two docks.
Standard.
One of them has already been all fixed up. This one, if I'm correct, when you take the measurements, is very close to whether or not it's out of the boundaries. Is that correct? Or
No, it is approximately 10 foot by 20 foot right now. It's a sliver with a slip right beside it. I just created a diagram.
I saw.
I think you're including both of this.
But it sounds to me like you're taking one lift out and putting in another newer, fancier. You got one of them buttons that raises your boat.
Nope.
This one.
arm power. And a technicality, there was Linda, I don't know what her last name is, her boat was sinking and they pulled her boat onto my lift and broke it. So
Oh,
I'm kind of repairing and just keeping a good neighborly thing here and making this all happiness. But it will be fit the requirements of 20 by 24.
Well, this
I'll make
sounds,
sure it's an inch small.
this sounds like it falls within the board for board clause that we have. So I move to approve.
I'll second.
all in favor? No.
They should all be so easy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Revenue resolution.
All right. Yeah, well, I'm gonna try to explain it again. I don't,
Explain it.
we don't have the number in there, but,
Several copies of it.
yeah. I wanna make sure the one we've got here is basically I'll just start from the beginning so we don't get confused. The old tax lid's gone. This is the new version of the tax lid. The county has already sent the city, sent Stephanie, its calculation of a revenue neutral rate, meaning that the rate in mill levy that they believe they would impose that would give you guys the same amount of money as you had last year in taxes.
In nominal terms.
Yes. Well, in very real terms, as you
Well,
may find out.
Yeah.
So they set that number, and that's the number that you are telling the public one way or the other that you're either going to agree to stay at or below, or that you exceed it. If you stay at or below it, you go through the regular budget process like you always do, and you never have to mention the revenue neutral rate again until a later date, which we'll talk about. But theoretically, that's supposed to make it so that you guys don't have to do any of this other rigmarole. If you want to go above the revenue neutral rate, then you have to give this notice first to the county clerk by June 20th. Sorry, spent all day working on
June 20th?
July 20th. Sorry.
I was like, you're making me panic.
Well, I've already was panicking today, so everybody join me. So July 20th, we have to have a notice to the county clerk that says you're going to do this. The reason for that is the county clerk takes that, gathers all the stuff, makes calculations, and then sends it out to everybody in the city saying, city is planning on going above the revenue neutral rate. Here are some details.
So to get them all whipped up just to
Yeah.
potentially
And then
keep
you,
up with inflation.
yeah, well, or whatever. It gets better. That starts a process where you go through, you have a hearing not only on the budget, but you have a hearing on the revenue neutral rate.
Okay.
And you got to pass both of those separately. It extends the budget time out. It's supposed to be, I think, between August 20th and September 20th is the time frame you got to have these meetings with a public hearing. So that you do that. It doesn't say that you have to have, you can only do it 2% above or a certain amount of mill. You could go to the limit, but that's what they're basically, this is like a transparency thing. They're saying, tell everybody before you're doing it that you're going to do it. And then you're going to have a hearing when you do it that says exactly what you're going to do. So that makes perfect sense and is absolutely marvelous, except for one big problem. Because the equation for the revenue neutral rate has a figure in it that changes constantly, which is the valuation, the revenue neutral rate would fluctuate the amount of tax that you would get. And we've already had some indications from county clerks that they've made mistakes, even in the interim, about valuations. And when they're off and they make a mistake, that can raise that value. And when you raise that value up, the same rate will get you more tax money. So let's go through that process. You've got a valuation problem. It's increased. So you said, well, we're going to go above the revenue neutral rate anyway. We've given this notice to the county clerk. We're going above it. So you're already going to have a hearing. So you can take care of that correction and you can go on down your merry way. You've had the hearing and you've done all you're supposed to do. So you're okay, theoretically. What's wrong if you say, no, we're not increasing it? Well, they don't care what the revenue neutral rate. They care about how much you collected in taxes. So the revenue, the valuation increases after you say, no, we're not increasing it. You take more into taxes because the valuation increases later. You have to, by law, refund that tax money to the taxpayers that you collected over that amount. So that's the one neat trick that makes this why you're looking at this. So the collective wisdom of the Stumbo-Hanson Municipal Brain Trust says, when you are faced with a choice like this, the best choice is to indicate that you're going above it, and that way you won't have to pay it back. So
Every year we're passing one of these, is that?
well, presumably we may get this is an interpretation of a bill that was passed, basically 2 or 3 months ago. So it could be that somebody like the AG's office says something, interprets it differently, or there's an amendment to it when we point this out. It's a little problem out to them, or maybe they make it worse. Who knows? But at this point, that's what we're saying is the fix for this. Maybe we do it every year, maybe not. And the folks out there you're probably going to get a notice going out to them that says you're going to go above the revenue neutral rate, which people may interpret as being an increase in taxes, which you would then have to respond. In which case, maybe we ought to just clip that last 5 minutes and just run it on a loop or something.
Perfect.
Because ultimately, you don't have to. Either you can just say, well, we're going to keep it, marginally above it, or 1% or anything like that, and it's not going to obviously amount to a whole lot, and you'll still never have a problem, but you'll have to have the hearing and you'll have people saying, well, you increased taxes. So that's why we're doing what we're doing.
So the nominal amount that you collect from 1 year of ad valorem is $100,000, let's just say. So next year to the penny, 100,000 is your ceiling. So no matter if your costs as running the city has increased beyond that, and cost of living adjustments and all the things the government likes to come up with, that doesn't matter. It's still in nominal terms $100,000.
Yeah, and then so if you're going to go above that, you need to do this process.
Gotcha.
And I don't think it was automatic before. You knew that you could do it within that cost of living number and not have to have anybody challenge it and have an election.
Which was, easier most of the time to just leave it alone.
Yeah.
We get what we get, but now we'll just kind of get slowly eroded our financing.
If you do this, you could notch it.
Well, yeah, sure.
Appropriately.
So what level of effort is involved on our part as far as like sending stuff out? Is that the county? Is that?
I think it's the county clerk that has to give the notice.
Okay, so we don't.
Right. Let me take a look at
We're not on the hook for writing letters and paying postage and.
Well, you have to, the
Everybody-
city puts notice on the city website and the city newspaper of the city's intent to succeed the RNR the date and time of the hearing on the matter. So you're going to do a website and the newspaper notice, which I think you already do a newspaper notice for
Yeah.
the budget anyway.
Mhm.
So,
So they'll give us a 2-for-1.
hopefully. Yeah, I think the only thing that I recall having sent out is that the county clerk is the one footing the bill for sending out to the city.
Yeah.
That they're increasing.
Kind of sucks, but at least it's not us.
And the legislature at work. So what you have is the resolution is just basically saying you may go above it, but giving notice that you're going to do that. The two things are we've already got the revenue neutral rate, so Stephanie will fill that in.
Mhm.
We do need to set the date where you're going to have the R&R hearing and put it in September. And we'll kind of have to backtrack from there to get all your dates set up. But
Don't
as
we
far as
normally do
publication-
August for budgets or?
Well, yeah.
Since they're doing all this, they've extended everything.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was kind of the deal, is trying to get everybody a little bit of room. So, but really the only thing, if you guys want to do it during your regular meeting, it's the 13th of September. Is it? It's either the 23rd of August or the 13th of September, unless you want to call a special.
I don't see a need for that. That's,
I don't either, and I'm thinking that we go with September 13th because that won't be a lake meeting, and that's winding down to the end of the season. We might be a little bit busier with lake meetings.
Yeah, that would be, there's nothing wrong with that. And it's just a matter of making sure we get the budget on track so that you guys can publish in time.
Anytime we can eliminate something from the lake meeting, that's a good thing.
Well, it's September 20th is the deadline anyway, so you could do it on the 27th. But that's the 23rd is probably when you're thinking that maybe it's going to be a busy
Yes, sir.
fun time.
That was the other one.
So you would do the same time for the budget hearing, or that would be before?
No, I think you can do it at the same time.
I'll let them go on. I'll also have to amend this year's budget, I think, at the same time for the gas.
Okay. 3 for 1. Triple
Yeah.
play. Hat trick. So at that, if we've covered that, then it's just a motion to approve the resolution 7 blah blah blah.
move to approve resolution, what is it, 7/12/21?
Mhm.
Filling in the blanks for the mills as appropriately.
Second.
Okay. Tim,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Justin,
Yes.
Adam.
Yes.
And that's that.
All right. So the Prairie Wind Apartments, there was a question last meeting about why there wasn't listed at the time. The reason that so I called Aaron about that, and I had forgotten that he told me that because we were trying to find out the amounts that we owed to the Department of Aging and the Kansas Housing Corporation, we really couldn't list it and give an appropriate what we want for it price. And so they had meeting after meeting after meeting. I think they were doing Zoom meetings for the Kansas Housing Corporation. And so they finally made a decision last week. Well, it was on the 28th. So it was it was just after our meeting. And then I got a hold of, it took me until today, and they called Stephanie and told her how much we owed the Department of Aging. And so now we know those two amounts.
They called today?
Mhm.
Stephanie,
Yes, they did.
the Department of Aging.
And that's who's got the notes.
That's what you-
And that total was what?
Don't know that I'd necessarily want to say that in public because we're still negotiating with different people taking bids on the property because we relisted it this week.
Okay, that's what I wanted to talk about, because we left it open at the last meeting that we were gonna contact local realtors and ask them if they were qualified or unqualified.
I already have a contract
And
with Aaron.
you don't have a
I'm not gonna
contract with
break them.
You don't
I'm
have a
not gonna break
contract
it.
with him. He didn't have it listed from February 19th. That's 4 months that it wasn't
That
listed.
is how long I have been dealing with it.
So he
them.
keeps his sign there for 4 months, falsely
Because-
advertising himself.
Because why wouldn't he? He could tell them what's going on with the building and tell
Except he
them
doesn't
that
call people back.
I don't know what you're talking about. He calls me back all the time.
Well, he doesn't call anybody else back that wants to look at the building. Well, Tyler Frank, one of the local realtors,
Your
emailed
relative?
Stephanie this.
Yes.
Rob Hughes, I also talked to, not a
Mhm.
relative of mine,
Friend of
actually.
yours.
And he'd be interested in listing it as well. And I'm also waiting for Dave Frederick to get back to me as well. What do you have to say there? There's the third
I
option.
say no. I'm the director of the housing and I signed a
You're not the
contract
head
with
of
him.
anything. We discussed that at the last meeting.
That was what you had to
You
say.
anointed yourself the head of that.
Well, and to be accurate, the property itself is held in the name of the partnership. And since one of the general partners, which was the old management company, left, the city, is my understanding, is the only one left as a partner of this partnership. So just so everybody's clear about somewhat of the division here, it is not necessarily a city property. It is the city directing what the partnership does.
Who's the city?
Well, city council and mayor, yeah. The question being that at a certain point, the city has vested its officer with apparent agency and authority over the partnership. Not that cannot be revoked at any particular time, but that in the past, in contract and in other things, an agent has the power to bind the principal to contracts. So I have not analyzed personally the listing contract, or at least recently, or anything involved with that. But I think what I'm saying is essentially that as a matter of partnership law and agency law, an agent has apparent authority to contract with people, and that would be held binding on the partnership. What happens from this point onward is obviously a question. But I don't think there's anything in the past that would indicate that Dolly was not without authority to do what she did.
How?
Okay.
She's a member on a board that I sit on, and I was unaware of any of it. So tell me how one board member can unilaterally make the decisions for the rest, and one mayor, non-voting mayor, can make all the rest of the decisions for the rest of the voting council.
Because you can
Explain that to me. We did not designate her
Because
to
a
that.
partner can designate and or allow somebody to act in the form of an agent.
But we didn't do any of that. We didn't
Well,
say
I mean,
act in our behalf or allow you to do this.
and
We
maybe
did not
that's
do that.
Yeah, and I'm gonna. The facts of the matter may be different than what I see. What I saw in the facts of the matter is that Dolly has signed off on a number of documents, has been in front of this body at least, has been advocating and acting on behalf and communicating on behalf of the partnership for a number of years.
20.
Well,
That's inaccurate as well.
If we want to, this is what
False narratives suck, and I'm tired of it.
Well,
so here's the thing.
here's what I like. I like narratives that keep both the partnership and this city out of legal trouble.
Please.
I like those narratives, and the narrative that I like right now.
So when you have a mayor saying that all the local realtors aren't qualified to do their jobs, which hurt them possibly in the future of somebody else saying, oh, they're not qualified to do that job. So they literally miss sales because of what she says in this meeting that is completely a lie and inaccurate. There's no accountability for that.
Well, the question is what I recall the mayor saying at that point was they were not qualified only in the situation of marketing, but is in essence a single use and a building that is subject to restrictions on its use of a formerly federally subsidized housing project that requires certain things be taken care of before you can sell it freely and use it to rent to everybody publicly. This is not even a normal commercial building. It's not a residence. And I could see the argument that would say that this is not something that a normal real estate agent could market. And that's what I understand her to be saying. This is a specialty property. Whether or not this gentleman who's doing it now is a specialist, I have no idea. But I can see the logic behind it. And we have, like it is not, an agreement that was entered.
After the last meeting, she entered into another agreement with this guy when we sat here and discussed that we were going to be going after and doing it. She
discuss
entered
it, you
right now it's
yelled
listed for
at me.
$300,000. That's the number. Why
Yeah.
wouldn't you say it? You wouldn't say it, but it's listed for everybody to go on
Because
and
I
say it,
had
but
to
it's
wait
a
until
secret
I
here
had
in
the
this meeting.
numbers, Brett. I'm sorry, I'm trying to be as professional as possible
I
with
don't
you.
think you are because you're not transparent with any of us. That's not professional. It's not professional to say somebody's not qualified
In
when you haven't spoken
2018,
with them.
would you mind? In 2018, we got it to the point where we could get it out of the partnership with Nebraska and put it on the market. It wasn't a good unit at the time. We needed to work on it, and Connie has helped me work on it for the last 3 years, getting it up to par so it became an attractive building again. Thank you for all the effort that we've done. And then I reported to you whenever we were doing certain things. I reported to you that we were going to put it on the market. I don't know
You
why.
did not
you
report us to. I brought it up about what was the situation and the problem of the apartments and how was it coming
Where
along.
was that?
And then the next time you just unilaterally, I drive by the apartments and there's a sign thrown in front of it. Immediately text the city clerk, unaware. Immediately text the city manager, unaware. Immediately text Tim,
Oh, wait a minute.
unaware.
He's the one
Andy,
that referred to
unaware.
this person. I'm sorry, but you're not quite accurate.
I believe he's
After the
100%
meeting-
accurate because I
After the
remember you
meeting,
surprising everybody with this for sale sign in the yard. You did not inform anybody around this table that you were going to do that. I'm going to vouch for him on that one. You did not
Well,
inform us of that.
anyway,
And we sat here and discussed last meeting about talking with local realtors and
No, I
getting
didn't.
back to the, yes, we
you
did.
yelled at me
Yes, we
about
did.
that.
We all
You're
discussed
absolutely, I
this.
yelled
We
at
were
you
gonna
about
go
You
it.
in.
absolutely did.
I did.
And
I think
told-
everybody watched
and I
it
did
and knows
not-
that that's what I
I
did.
told you I was done talking to you about that because there was no talking to you.
Exactly. Because you don't want to talk about it doesn't mean that I have to stop talking. You're not wanting to talk about a sticky situation when you're pushed up against the back of a wall.
I don't feel pushed up against this back of the wall because I'm
Dolly,
the only
people
one
don't
that's
like
been
that you
working on it.
unilaterally make decisions.
People.
People, one people, two people. I can tell you, Justin, do you want her making decisions without letting any of us know anything?
I feel that
Let me
I
put
let
you
you
on the
know.
spot.
I'm not sure what all decisions she's made. Now, it was kind of a surprise to me to see the whole sign in the yard thing at the time because I know we had talked about selling it. I didn't think we had quite made that step yet. I don't know.
You hadn't made the step to sell it yet?
It was my
I don't think we
understanding.
made the step to list it, but
I thought we had to find out how much we owed on this stinking thing.
yeah.
That's where it was
But
left.
I've been waiting since February for
But
it.
according to her, today was the day that we found out. But it was listed 2 days after the last meeting for $300,000. So do you see why I have a problem here?
Well, I have a problem trusting as well. I've been proven too
price-
many times.
And here's a
You can't.
local realtor. If you want to read, Dolly, would you like to read his thing out loud?
Who is it? Oh, that's your relative. You read it.
That's irrelevant.
I can't read it.
I'll
It's
read
too
it.
little.
I'll read it.
Read
Okay.
it.
Read it like you were related to him.
Yeah.
I'm
With
not sure
feeling
how
and
that goes, but
understanding.
it's fine. I'm sure we're all related somehow in here. Marsha, am I related? I'm related to you. Actually, I
And
am.
I'm related to Ron Marshall. Kim's are related to other people, so I'm probably related to all of you somehow.
Not to, oh, we'll just do this. Anyway, dear council, I wanted to first off start with a thank you to you for considering me and letting me interview for the job to be the listing agent for the property at 201 North Cedar Street. I wanted to take the opportunity to both explain why I believe I would be an excellent choice to list and sell the property, and also a few reasons about why I believe it didn't sell the first time around. When I first saw this unit for sale, I had several buyers of my own that I was running numbers for and seeing if it would work for them. When it listed last November, it was a little late in the year for some of my heavy investors to purchase and dump some cash before the end of the year, like investors typically do to avoid some tax issues. So that didn't help the cause much for a ton of investors, as I'm sure a lot of them had already allocated their funds elsewhere for that particular year. Then we had the holiday season where investments can be a bit dormant. Investors will then do their taxes and projections in March, April timeframe, which then allows them to allocate some money for a project such as this. The big problem here was that this property got listed 11/19 of 2020, and the listing then expired 2/19 of 20, thus being maybe the worst window of the year for investors. Furthermore, not to shame the last listing agent or the listing itself, but a ton of key investor components were missing from this listing. Very valuable information that investors want and need to see. When I look at the previous listing, I just see so many things missing that would make this property sell. The pictures, just another storyline of why, in my opinion, it didn't sell. They aren't the best quality, but that isn't the main problem. They don't showcase the building at all. This building has such a great lot that it sits on and needs to be shown. And also the units themselves need to be shown. Only exterior and common areas were shown, which is great, but you also need to have pictures from the same of the nicer units so that the buyer can know condition a little more before coming to view. Investors will not come look if they don't have a little idea of condition. The next issue goes back to the numbers again. I see the owner, city, doesn't pay property taxes on the property, but the next guy will have to. The last listing agent said it would be estimated that the taxes would be around $2,400 a year, but had no explanation behind it. I know where I got it from similar buildings in the county, but people in the public have no idea. These are things you have to take your time on and be diligent in describing to people that make sure that they will be intrigued with the purchase. I could go on and on about a ton of reasons this didn't sell the first time around. I'm also here to not make those same mistakes. I do things a little differently than most. I gather all the numbers because that is the most important thing to any and all buyers out there. I have a professional photographer come out, take pictures to make sure your property is showcased in the best way possible. I actively sell investor units to the 20 plus investors I work with on a daily basis that are in my database. The small things in this business really matter. Who you hire matters the most. To tell you a little bit more about myself, I grew up a good part of my childhood right down the street from this very building in Eskridge. I graduated from Mission Valley. I have been selling real estate for almost 6 years now, and I have sold over 230 units with over a dozen of those being in Eskridge. As a matter of fact, I have listings there right now that sold in less than 10 days and for over asking price. I do feel like I get the job done over and over again with steady consistency. I also know exactly what investors are constantly looking for in a purchase, not only because I have a database of over 20 of them that are constantly buying and selling with me, but also because I own 13 properties myself and I am the property manager also for all of those. I have a ton of experience in the investment side of real estate and can assure you that I will do will do everything I can from the very start to make sure your listing sells in the shortest time for the most money and the least amount of headaches. I hope you will consider me for the position. I look forward to showing you what I am capable of and starting a long-lasting business relationship for any other projects you may have. As far as the time frame goes, I can be ready whenever. You aren't under a seller's agency with any other agent at this time. This was prior to obviously you signing with them. So no need to terminate or do anything there. We just need to jump on the call or meet and go over numbers to get the listing agreement signed, and I will get the work right away. Thank you for your time and consideration. Tyler Frank, Realtor, Keller Williams. And relative. Well, I should probably go on the line and say cousin. We'll just clarify
At
that.
the last meeting, Dolly, I remember you saying that these people that he had at the sleeve were all unqualified. And I asked you to explain why they were unqualified, and you said that you will explain that later. I was wondering if maybe you can explain that now,
Yes.
why Tyler's unqualified.
At the time that I asked various people who I should look into, they suggested that I get somebody that sold commercial properties. And so I asked them who that would be, and they told me about Aaron. And because they knew him, because they had gone to college with him, and they had also played on ball, and he was local.
Was that Mark the banker?
And Mike.
Okay.
And so I interviewed with Aaron, and I was impressed with what he had to say. In fact, frankly, I liked the fact that he had the years of experience as he did, and the association with who he is involved with that covers 5 states. So.
Just to clarify,
My
Mark
question
Holting's
was why,
friend.
just, excuse me,
Since we're
my question was
titling
why is
everything.
Tyler unqualified?
Because he mostly sells residential buildings, I guess. I don't know. I actually know a person that bought a place from him, and I didn't want to talk. I would have talked about it in private, but I won't talk about it in public. The way he sold the building, I don't think that, well, we would have had to interview him, and I just don't know if they would have held up.
And Rob Hughes?
What about him?
Well, he said that when I messaged him, he said he was qualified and that if we're considering it, he would consider listing it as well. That's actually a local as well. I'm sorry I don't have anything from Dave Frederick, but
Mhm.
I'm not going to say I'm going to get it for the next meeting if you're going to do something and thwart all the efforts of everybody that's.
I'm just confused by the timeline here. Late last year, we decided that we cannot list it until we know what we owe on it. And then surprise, there's a sign in the yard. And then, I guess not too much surprise, it's somebody that you went with that's not a local. We discussed it. You know that people on this council, more than just Brett, wanted a local person to at least have a stab at it. Last meeting, we discussed all the problems associated with the current realtor that you said that you have a contract with, which I haven't seen. And then we discussed that we were going to come up with more ideas, more people to possibly post it. But then was it the very next day that you re-signed with this seller again? After we discussed we were going to look at other people, then you signed with the
When,
same
last
person
week?
again? Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
I didn't re-sign with him because I didn't break the contract.
The contract was broke when he stopped listing it on
We had to
February
stop
19th
listing
at
it
midnight.
because we found out that Fred Bentley had retired, and he was the one that was dealing with the Kansas Housing Corporation, and he was the one that had the numbers. So when I called the Lisa, I was like, I discussed some of this stuff. You guys need to pay attention better.
Oh, really? You're going to lay this on us for the fact that
Well,
we decided we were not going to list
I
it
knew-
until we knew the numbers.
I knew the
and you have
numbers,
not released
because
the
you guys
numbers
didn't-
until
You
today.
didn't want to have anything
She
to do
didn't
with it
release
for
the number
years.
until I
That's
released it
because we
for
can't
her.
sell something without knowing what we owe on it.
We knew what we had owed on it for the Department of Aging. And so when we called the people in the Housing Corporation, they're the ones that had the Zoom meetings forever and ever and ever. And
I don't understand what these Zoom meetings have anything to
I,
do with.
well,
The fact
because
that
they,
we
I
said
couldn't go
We're
in
not
and
gonna
talk
sell
with
it till
them,
we know what we owe on it, and then
right?
you put a sign in the yard.
Well, they're developing a number, right? They're developing that number that we, I guess, owe. I don't
Well,
know why it
we
takes so
know,
much determination to put
know-
a pen to paper and
Isn't
figure
that
out what
what
that
the
we
is.
know, because we know that,
Can't you go like
It's-
this and it's there?
We knew the major amount that we
well,
had,
the
all right.
amount is more than what the property is likely worth.
Correct. But this,
So
this
therefore
place was relisted on July 2nd, 4 days after the last
But
meeting.
the entity that is in charge of it has the ability to write that down. So the question wasn't necessarily entirely what was the debt, it was how much would it be written down for sale.
Well, I also have concerns about what the apartment complex owes the city, because we were told numerous times, oh, it's paid off. And then the next meeting, well, there's only $7,000 left. And then the next meeting, oh, it's paid off. And then the following meeting, no, there's this much left. And that toggled back and forth. And I have no idea what to believe from you
I
now.
don't remember saying
I'm sure it's all
I
recorded.
know you said it's, you were paying on it.
paying on it, yeah.
I don't know. I don't
We
know
got
if
it
you
down
got
to-
it paid off. or
And
not,
then
but-
this
But
also
it's
brings up concerns for me, just not even the apartments, but we're doing the land bank now. So when people give us property, can Dolly just go list it with whoever for whatever price for whatever? I mean, because that's the precedent that's being set by this that's happening right now.
Well, if you'll give me a minute, at the time that I started with Aaron, we knew how much we owed the Department of Aging. And we also knew the $180,000 that we owed the Housing Commission. I was told that they were willing to go down on that, and I needed to know how much. And so we had one person that was interested in bidding on it. And we told him how much we thought we knew we owed, and he met the price. But we still didn't have the final amount from the Housing Commission. And so on the 28th, they made a decision. She got a hold of me Lisa Ice got a hold of me a couple of days later and told me what they had decided. And it was a lower amount than the $180,000, which I was glad of, because in that way we could get a profit.
Are they gonna give us that in writing?
So it's not 300,000, or that's what the listing is.
So you
So we
asked for
do
them
need
to
to
give
have
that
an
in writing.
executive session
That
to
wasn't
discuss that,
convincing yet to
right?
me. You need to push that.
What?
Well, that's a good point. It's a good point. I mean, if we're talking about two different people, we're talking about a state agency and a corporation that's basically a state agency. We need something that says what mark we're hitting as far as the debt is concerned. I mean, I think if we came back and they gave us total amounts, then that's all we really need to know. Because
They gave
if
us-
we're gonna get above that and we're gonna pay them off, I think it's immaterial kind of what they have to say about it, because they can only get what they can get. I mean, they can only get the full amount of their debt. It's kind of like a bank. They get the first mortgage, you're gonna either sell it above the first mortgage or you're not gonna sell it at all. If they're gonna discount it, I would have hoped that they would tell us in writing what the agreement would be, how much they're discounting it, and what dates that's good for, what conditions, if they have any, on the sale. You know, that's got to be part of it. So if we can get that, I think that's a good first step.
While you're at it, I'd like to know what they owe the city this week.
And who's the buyer? The buyer that we've been holding and setting on and only letting him be the buyer because he's gonna pay us what it is. He's gonna do this. He's gonna.
Well, hopefully
she.
he doesn't get
We don't know
disinterested
who it is.
watching this. I would be glad to share some of that information as long as it was in an executive session and private.
Then why haven't you done it? You could have alleviated
Because I
some
just
of our
found out,
frustration.
I
No, you
just found
didn't.
out about
You've been
that.
talking about this investor for weeks and months, and you've never said anything. You could have squashed and squandered this by calling an executive session.
You are exaggerating what you're interested in.
No, I am
The
not
only reason
exaggerating
that
any
you're doing
interest.
that is because you see me as blood in the water and you want to come after me about it. I've been as open as I possibly can with you without, I cannot say
You
stuff in.
You can call an executive
You didn't
session
call an
like I
executive-
do to explain
You-
everything to us, but you've left everybody in limbo, not knowing anything, people asking questions, nobody knows the answers, but Dolly's making all the decisions.
And we can't believe anything that comes out of your mouth. You've proven that.
Thank you.
You have proven that time and time again.
Bet.
Who makes the final decision on the sale?
Well, you guys do.
Well, the city does, yes.
What I'm saying is that this person she has in mind says, all right, I want to buy it. And she goes, okay, it's yours. Are we obligated?
I can't do that.
Well,
I mean, I think it's,
I can't list it either.
well,
I mean,
We decided not
Yeah.
to list it until we knew what we owed on it, and the nurse assigned it.
I mean,
And we just learned what we owed on it today, right, Stephanie?
Well,
And it's been listed since
On
the
that
second for
one.
300,000.
No,
So
I
how
found
does
out- I
this,
found
It
out
was
about
listed
it
in
on the,
November.
Not the whole thing.
it was for 200 and some for 3 months, then it was off for 4 months,
Good thing it
now
didn't
it's on
sell.
for 3.
so I was just
Right, because
told
we
what
can live
was,
for
I wasn't told the
$80,000.
do you,
full
are
amount.
you only
That was a lot.
interested in trying to make me look really, really bad?
You
Or
don't
do you
need our
really,
help.
really want to know everything that I've been telling you all along? And that I told you had to wait because this one committee, what I've been working with them forever. They met twice a month and they changed their mind. And so then I would have to wait again until I was at their mercy. And the deal that they told us is a very good deal. And I could tell you, but
Okay, I move that we make no motion, no progress on this Prairie Run apartment sale until we have all of the numbers required to sell it.
Stephanie, you said that you got part number, but not the whole thing just now. You were trying to say something.
So just one department, I got what they owe the Department of Aging, not the
Which
Department
is?
of Housing.
which is executive session, please.
yeah, if you guys want to do that, that's not a bad idea.
But do we need to have an executive
You don't,
session?
that's
If
only
it's
up
the
to you.
city's apartments, it's these people's apartments as well.
Don't you want the best deal?
What's
I mean,
what's the legal reason for going into an executive session
What are the,
besides attorney-client privilege?
there is a exception for contemplation of sale of property.
Okay.
It hasn't, but that's just, the purpose behind that is so that you're not disclosing things that may affect value in
Yeah.
negotiation. So.
Let me ask you
This
this.
is your
We're
discretion.
talking about numbers now, and it's right now, anybody in here can go up on a realtor's website and look at the listing and see that it's listed for $300,000.
but you don't know how I got to that number.
What does it matter how it got to the number when it's out there that it's $300,000?
It makes a difference on what profit
But
we
we would
make.
like to know what we owe, right? As citizens.
Well, but the profit is a function of what the debt is, and the debt doesn't change, or it changes based upon forgiveness that's granted. And that's all we're talking about here.
Which is just found out about.
So, I mean, we're completely relying on debt forgiveness. It's not like we're paying principal and interest every month. That's reducing that slowly over time. I mean, 'cause, I mean, it might be that the better option is to just hang on to it, let the thing cash flow itself. If it's generating income. then-
Yeah, I don't know if there was payments made on this or not.
I don't know. I mean, but is that a better option to hold off for 10 years? And, in theory, that note is reduced to less. I mean, I know we're anxious to get rid of it, but I mean, if we can get
Yeah, I don't know the answer. That's just, you don't know the answers unless you get
$1,000
the,
profit now versus 100,000 later. I mean,
if you have the
Or
amount of the debt and the
100,000 now.
amortization.
well, yeah, I don't just throwing out numbers, but
Yeah.
As I've been saying for over a year, I'm anxious to know the numbers.
yeah, I mean,
We can't make any decision without knowing the numbers.
It's the amortization you're saying. What is the level of the amortization so we can see that
yeah.
point at which.
But I mean, if it's just an issue of the state saying, well, you're getting a heck of a deal at, X amount that we are making the deal because it's going to be this today or this tomorrow or, whenever, because there is no amortization taking place or
Yeah, I don't know.
payments or what have you, but that reduce that amount.
They were wanting a percentage.
Okay.
But that's the forgiveness.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's kind of two different things, I guess, so. I don't know if it appreciates any if we hold on to it, but that's,
I still hold my motion.
I second.
well, I think it's more of a directive, but.
You don't want me to tell you in executive session the deal, and you wanna try and maybe worry about blowing this deal?
My motion was that we don't do anything until we get all of the numbers and we know exactly what
I'm
we owe
sitting
them.
right here with them.
With all of the numbers,
Well,
exactly what we owe the
thank you.
city.
thank you, well, thank you to Stephanie taking the phone call that I've been waiting for since last week. I know what the Department of Aging owes, and I can tell you what the Housing Commission said,
If we have everything else out of the way, then
and she can tell you what
we
we
go
owe.
executive. I don't know, but that's. What are you thinking, Todd?
I'm thinking, this is the damnedest thing I've ever seen. It's
Rob Hughes just said he'd be interested and wants to throw his hat in the list.
here's what I'm gonna say. We're gonna have,
Friend of mine.
one way or the other, we're gonna end up with a transaction if we're gonna sell this property. That's gonna have a lot of paperwork involved with it, not the least of which is gonna be an agreement between us and whomever is the numbers we're talking about. We all know it's gonna end up with them writing it down in some fashion. How much, when, dates, times, amounts for two different entities are at stake here. I don't think we could do that without having that in some form of a writing. I understand it is difficult to get the state or these agencies to do something, I think, but I have a hard time believing they don't understand that at the end of the day, these things can't be acted on based upon a phone call telling us what they're gonna do. If they're a committee, they have committee meeting notes. If they can give us a letter of commitment that says what they're doing. There's 100 different ways to slice and dice this thing. So the next step we take, we have those guys locked down. And then you're on to the phase of realtors, sale prices, and marketing.
Get it in writing.
So we need letters from all of those.
Well, they
agencies.
sent me
That
a
makes sense.
detailed email
Yes.
on it, and so
Well,
that I
yeah,
can
that-
ask them.
Yeah, I don't know what we can take what we can take, but and what assurances we can take from them, but I haven't seen anything in writing that says anything about the debt. So, I mean, that's got to be tracked down.
Well, and I talked to you about that.
Yeah, and I understand that they've agreed to some things. I'm not understanding that we don't have a paper trail.
We do have a motion on the table.
We do have a paper trail. What is the motion? Please repeat it.
The motion is that we take no further action on the Prairie Wind Apartments until we have all of the numbers for what we owe on the building property
Okay.
In writing.
in writing. Bona fide.
So you would risk, I could sit here and tell you, and probably blow a deal, or at least let everybody out there know what the other person's bidding, and that might affect what people bid on it. You would rather not.
I'm not afraid to receive this information in a executive session.
Okay.
Nor am I.
I am absolutely not going to be behind selling this property until we know what we owe on it. That's ludicrous.
Well, let me ask you this. So let's say you make the motion now, we go to executive session, you get
What the motion
exactly what you
requires.
wanted. Do you just motion right back out of that? I mean,
Well, it's
I don't
null and
know.
void at that point.
well, okay, but
You can't motion out of it until you get the stuff in writing from the state, Todd.
Well, that's true. So in writing,
I mean.
and I agree with that. I mean, it seems like a proper horse before the cart.
I'm not
Kind of
taking it on
thing,
a
but-
promise.
Yeah.
It
And I
wasn't
mean,
a promise, it was an email
But at
and
the same
they
time-
laid it out.
yeah, but at the same time, they've given her information in good faith. I think we should review it. So that's okay. No, we're saying the same thing. So
I'll
yes.
just copy it all off and
So somebody.
You're just a little more
fill out a
eloquent than I
motion,
am.
and do a motion and
Well,
executive session.
I don't
Now
know.
we're
I mean,
still, the motion's still,
And you,
and I
you're
well,
still,
we could just let it die.
Well, that's not,
Yeah.
that's the choice of the
Hey,
council.
he's
That's
saying,
what I'm saying.
he's saying in print. I
We have a motion and a second.
can agree with the in print.
in favor?
we gotta drag this out of you, or you're gonna ask for a vote?
I just did. We have a motion. All in favor?
There we go.
Yeah.
I now move for 5-minute executive session for, how do you want to word it?
Time out.
Sale of city property.
Should we cover the law enforcement subject first? I mean,
Yeah,
No, we wanna come back. We don't
That's,
wanna be kicked out and go home. We wanna know what y'all are doing.
well, that's,
I don't believe we kick anybody out.
No, but I mean,
But we,
I got a
No,
long
I-
goal today.
yeah, I see where she's coming from. I like an executive session to be the last thing we do, unless there's
That'll give you
specific
time to
action that
look up
comes
the
out of
exception.
executive. But, I mean, if we're doing law enforcement, then are we talking about it?
No, you don't understand what I'm saying.
No,
I
she
want you to
won't.
have executive session and then we'll come back and do law enforcement. So if you have anything else to tell us about your executive session or what you don't, we know that.
Okay.
Give you
Okay.
time
That's
to
what I'm
discuss the
saying.
exception.
Okay.
I just wanna know where you're at. I'm supposed to come, so I know what's going on, so I wanna know what's going on. You guys have been doing a lot of talking here, so.
That's fair.
Chasing tails.
Were you making the executive session motion?
I can. Sure.
We
Where
don't
was
have,
him?
yeah, we've got.
Let's make it a
No,
little
no.
bit longer than 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Just in case.
I'll go for, well,
10.
he was in the middle of
6.
making a motion, wasn't he?
Yeah, he
Left,
made a
how's that
motion
work?
for 5-minute executive session.
And then he left.
And then-
Excuse me, council, we're gonna make a motion and go home.
Thank
We'll redraft this. and pay
you
for
for
the
coming down.
Thank you all, appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, there's Brett's motion. I'll second it. So,
That's what my job is.
That's gonna make the minutes look weird.
Nope, the other way.
Going
The other way.
So, about amending the budget,
Hey,
that we will have to amend.
Hey, Marshall, you register.
With the budget.
Pardon?
That's gonna
Marshall,
be-
what happened?
Wasn't going for 10 minutes.
Yeah, yeah.
You shouldn't.
No, I had a foot correction repair.
Oh, did they? Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I got it.
Does not sound fun.
It's relative.
Uh,
Real property acquisitions.
Real.
Wait a minute, is that right?
Where'd it go?
I shouldn't have read that.
Hey,
We gotta make it a attorney.
Marcia, send Brett back in.
Oh, he's waiting on us.
Attorney-client.
This doesn't cover the sale of
This
property.
is,
Not bad, huh?
Did someone's?
and you-
No,
I
I think
second
it- well,
Brett's motion. I mean,
we gotta get-
if we're, okay, there we go.
Let's reset, please.
Shut the doors.
Okay.
No. We're resetting a motion first.
Because it's for a 5-minute executive session.
Yeah,
Maybe
But,
two
but,
hours.
the-
Make a
but it's got,
motion again
good, but it's
for
gotta
executive.
be attorney-client privilege.
Attorney-client privilege for 10 minutes? Do we need 10 or 5?
Let's do 10,
Okay,
so that we get it done.
Okay,
perfect.
Second.
okay,
All in favor?
okay.
Watch the thing when it goes off, we'll start.
Did you drop the doors?
Yeah.
That's a trick I didn't know. This doesn't, the executive session doesn't work for sale of property. Only